What's up, everybody? It's been a while, but we're back. I know that I posted on Instagram yesterday and said that I probably wasn't going to have a show this week, but turns out I got some free time, and there's been something weighing on me all weekend. I had a pretty good show, I thought, in the old queue, and then things kept happening at home. I was getting distracted, and then you know how moods are; they wax and wane. And next thing you know, I was just like, "Yeah, it's Super Bowl Sunday. We've got bigger things going on than that." So I conceded the show for church and Super Bowl pregame stuff and that kind of stuff. And we are right now about 12 hours post Super Bowl win for the Philadelphia Eagles. And for those who may not know, this house is a devout supporter of the Philadelphia Eagles. Myself, a fan for 39 years now. And I ain't gonna lie, it feels pretty good when you wake up the next day and you are the fan of a team that won the Super Bowl. When your team wins, it feels good. And it was an absolute ass whipping. So that also feels good when I think it feels better when you absolutely dominate versus squeaking that field goal in with a second left. I don't know. I would have to feel those things side by side to, I guess, maybe understand which feels better, but the complete domination of the entire game. The score is bullshit, by the way. Like, there's some garbage points on there that make it look closer than it was, and it was not. As a product of that win, AJ, friend of the show, this year's bet was he has to now sing the Eagles fight song at our systems meeting in March. That was the bet. And there will be recordings, and this thing will go viral. It'll be amazing. How about that show 2 weeks ago with Pastor Jeremy? Man, that was a dandy. Probably one of the best ones I've ever done. Certainly well received, and very appreciative of that, by the way, for everybody who's reached out and said, man, that was great. And who wrote some kind words via text messages or phone calls or whatever. Commented. The biggest compliment I think that anybody can get is when you share that with other people. And I know that several people had shared that episode, and certainly not because of me, but because of the message Pastor Jeremy was giving, and it was amazing. Sat in on church yesterday, got to visit with Pastor Jeremy a little bit before the service, and then the service was basically a continuation of what we talked about. Coincidentally, why does God allow suffering? And if you haven't checked it out, if you're not didn't attend the church or see it on YouTube, you can go to the YouTube channel and watch it. Pastor Mike delivers the message, and it was amazing as always. So the good news about sitting down with Pastor Jeremy is he was very, very interested in the project and very enthusiastic about the project, and has agreed to sit down again. So this won't be the last time you hear from him, and it won't be the last time you hear him and I discuss whatever it is that we're going to discuss as it relates to hopefully what we do for a living. So if you guys have any topics of interest, any questions you want answered, suggestions, just DM me, which I don't even know what DM means. Direct message? Is that what it is? I just hear people say it. Or text me or comment on the show. Either way, you know how to get a hold of me, and we'll set something up. So I'm really excited about that. I am just a few minutes removed from a 5-minute soak in the cold tub. So I'm sitting here in front of the fireplace trying to warm myself back up. So if you hear my teeth chattering, that is why. Feels good. Super Bowl champs. Feels good. This is the fourth Super Bowl I've seen in my lifetime. The Eagles have been a part of 5, but this is the fourth one I've seen, the second victory. the last being in 2017 with the Philly, if you guys remember that, against the Patriots. I don't know why it feels so good. I have no connection to the team other than I've supported them for 39 years. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't know anybody. Iowa has a connection, obviously, with Cooper DeJean, which is kind of cool, and we love to see people do good stuff. But it just hits like this. This win hits different. Not sure why. Maybe it was because it was against the Chiefs. Which brings another question: is at some point the human condition gets tired of like one person or one team having all the success. And I don't know where that comes from. I'm interested in discovering that more. I don't have an answer right now, but I'm going to find out because it does, for whatever reason, get tiresome. And of all the people I've talked to this week, man, I hope the Chiefs lose. I hope the Chiefs lose. They didn't really hope that the Eagles won. They just hoped that the Chiefs lost. And so what a difference that is. I'm at home cheering for the Eagles to win because that's my team. I want them to win. I want them to do good. I want them to be successful. Not necessarily for them, but for me, so that I have something to be proud of, so that I can wear my Eagle shirt with pride, so that I can maybe talk a little smack to Chiefs fans. But there was a whole group of people out there that just wanted the Chiefs to lose. And I'm trying to wrap my head around the psychology behind that. Because if you're good, you're good. What does it matter if you win 5 Super Bowls in a row? Like, if you're good, you're good. Stop them. Like, be the team to stop them. But we, as the human condition, I think sometimes have a tendency to start, I'm not going to use the word hating, but disliking teams with too much success. And I don't. This isn't the message I wanted to get across today, but it's just an interesting topic. I just felt this whole week was interesting. So the topic I do want to discuss today is the topic of legacy, and what does that mean, and how is it perceived? The definition of it can go either way. My definition of it is how are we going to be remembered when we leave? And by leave, I mean our careers. Certainly by leave, I can mean this earth, as there will be some examples of that, and we've had some tragic losses in the last couple of weeks, and we're gonna continue to have those. And so how are these people remembered, and who are these people remembered by? Legacy can also basically means like a gift you leave somebody. So maybe the legacy to my children will be that I left, pick your object. But I think that also could mean, a gift you left your community, the society, your mankind, those kinds of things. So if you look at the Eagles Super Bowl win, everybody that had a part of that win, so Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Zach Bond, all those, Cooper DeJean, all of their legacy is cemented in history with a recorded statistic, right? So they are going to be forever known on this team throughout football history, which is a good legacy to have. They're going to go down as winners. They're going to go down as having interceptions. They're going to go down as having completed passes. They're going to go down as having touchdowns. And we will in the future be able to look back on that and find what kind of impact they had on their team and their community and their family. There's also, unfortunately, people in history that have a negative legacy, that left negative impacts on their community or history. There's also people that have unfairly have a negative legacy. Billy Buckner comes to mind, the first baseman for the Red Sox, who in all of history is basically blamed for the loss of that World Series to the New York Mets, which also a fan of. the New York Mets. And it was unfair. But his legacy in baseball is that ground ball that went between his legs, not the fact that he was a really, really good hitter, and that he actually played for the Cubbies and was a really, really good hitter, and had a pretty solid baseball career, Hall of Fame worthy baseball career. But we're always going to remember him as the guy that, booted the ground ball to lose the World Series. Pete Rose is another one whose legacy will go on as he's the greatest hitter of all time. You can't not talk about hitting without talking about Pete Rose, but yet he died not in the Baseball Hall of Fame because he's serving a penance for a crime that he committed 50 years ago, 40 years ago. I don't know. Right or wrong. That's his legacy. Probably not the legacy he intended to have, what he set out to in his professional baseball career, but that's where he's at, and that's where we're at. So in our jobs, what opportunity do we have to leave a legacy? Or what kind of legacy do we leave when we retire from EMS, get out of EMS? Sadly, if we die, what kind of impact did we have on our profession? And I think that there's different legacies we can leave, right? Like, I think it's natural for people to want to leave an impact in their profession, despite what that profession is. Like, you want to be that person who's associated with maybe some sort of capital gain, maybe some sort of acquisition, maybe some sort of policy or procedure, maybe the person that's responsible for inviting a new and cutting edge procedure or piece of equipment, but I think more importantly, and those are etched in history, right? Like, if you come up with a policy and it gets adopted by your service, you are the author of said policy. Now you have that accolade to your name. But are we going to remember it? The legacy that I'm looking for is, how are you talked about when you leave the profession? Or how are you talked about when you leave your service? I can tell you that probably 15 years ago, the legacy I was leaving was, probably a little less than that. Maybe, I don't know. Didn't matter. A little over a decade ago. The legacy that I was probably leaving was probably not a good one. And I don't mean because of insubordination or medical errors or shitty patient care. I just think it was probably my attitude. I was known as a bit of a grump, I think. Somebody who was a little crabby, maybe a little abrasive, and rightfully so. I'm not going to defend said behavior, and I'm certainly not gonna discredit. Our reputations in this business are earned. Like, we get them for a reason. It's not arbitrary. That can some things be taken out of context? Yeah, sure. But I don't know if we've all noticed in our small little EMS community around central Iowa and even in the state, like, everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. And it just takes one bad interaction for anybody to now suddenly have a reputation that is becoming or unbecoming. But I also realize that that's not really the legacy that I want to leave. And so if you have any conversation with people about the past, just pay attention how they talk about certain people. That's their legacy. That's all they'll ever talk about. So whether it was protocol violation with Unfavorable outcome, legacy. How do you fix that? Well, it's not a death sentence. It's not a life sentence. I think there's probably ways to get back. Um, the way you treat people, the way we treat the new generation coming in. There's a whole host of stories of these experienced tenured providers. I'm talking 15, 20, 25 year plus providers. And you get somebody new in, and the attitude towards them is not overly kind. And maybe we're going to teach them a lesson about this job, or maybe we're going to make it more uncomfortable than it needs to be, right? Because we're going to impose our superiority or seniority on them, and we're going to make a high pressure job even more high pressure, right? Instead of just embracing the fact that we were all new once, and that it is our job as seasoned providers, if we consider ourselves in that category, to pass on tips, tricks, hacks, knowledge, education. Hey, here's what I did once and it didn't work out. Keep your eyes open for this pitfall. Like, it's easy to get sucked into thinking it's this when it's actually this. Like, these are the things that I learned. I don't want you to learn the hard way, the way that I did. Taking extra time to show people things. There's a lot of examples. What do you do for your service that moves your service forward every day? Do you move it forward? Do you bring it down? If you're that guy or the gal that's been there for 20 plus years and nobody wants to work with you, that's not the good legacy to leave. Like, after 2 decades of working at a profession or a job, and you're gonna leave it eventually, and you're gonna be like, nobody's gonna remember your first 5 years there if nobody was working there at the time. Everybody's gonna remember your last. If Does that make sense? Like, nobody knows you any differently prior to them working for your service. So your legacy that you're going to leave and have on that person that just joined your service is going to be whatever your last few years are. And if it's crotchety, if it's rotten, if it's negative, you will only be spoken of in that context. Does that make sense? And we have to think really hard about if that's what we want. And I don't even know if some of us even acknowledge that we do it, like, because it's so habitual. Our behavior is so habitual that it's really, really hard. Take it from me. It's really, really hard to change personal behaviors that are ingrained in um everyday habits. And I know this because there's habits I'm trying to fix. You will never get credit, unfortunately, for the days that nobody sees you be successful. Meaning, the days that you chose not to react to something in a certain way, you'll never get credit for that. You'll always get credit for the one time you do react in a negative way. Totally understandable, because society wants a complete 180. They don't want small, intricate consistency. They don't want an inch at a time. They want a mile at a time. We all want a mile at a time. We all want instant. We all want now. We all want to flip a switch. Pick your poison on what you want that. But the whole growth mindset thing is baby steps, inch at a time, inch at a time, inch at a time. Those inches add up to feet. Those feet add up to yards. Those yards add up to miles. Those miles add up to, great distance. You've come a great way. But nobody wants that. Nobody wants to see that. They want now. They want you to show up for work. If you were an asshole yesterday, they want you to show up better today. And I think that we can do that a little bit, but we have to acknowledge, though, that years and years and years of a certain mindset isn't going to be fixed in a day. So, what does that mean? That means the longer we haven't considered our legacy in our profession, the shorter amount of time we have to fix it if we want it fixed. Because we're all running up against some sort of time, whether that's time left in our profession, time left on this earth, time left with family, however that looks. At the end, I think we're all going to want to be remembered fondly. But in order to do that, we have to give our profession reason to look at us fondly. And I don't know, that doesn't look the same for everyone, clearly, because there are people that we talk about at a very high regard that are either no longer with us or no longer do this job. And you can look back at them and say, well, why did this person have such an impact on me? Why is the legacy of this person in high regard? Is because they probably took time out of their day to teach, to educate, to foster, to guide, to mentor, to just be a kind person on a day where somebody needed a kind person, to do the small things, to acknowledge other people's existence, to say hi to people, to hold doors open, to let people go first, to give up the low frequency, high risk skill to somebody who's maybe career has more years in it left than theirs, to sacrifice, to bring an energy, to bring a tone to your day, right? Are you the person that people want? Like, if there's a shift put out for a sick call, that people look at on a schedule and go, yeah, I'll work with that person. That sounds like a good time. Or are you that person that said that people look at the schedule and go, nah? Legacy. What are you leaving for the people coming after you and for the people that are currently with you? I think about that all the time. And the thing is we'll never know how people speak of us when we're gone, right? And here in a second, I'm going to give you an example of a real life legacy that probably in the grand scheme of things doesn't hold as, probably holds more, I think, weight than anything that happened in the Super Bowl last night. Even though it won't be publicized, it won't be, it's gonna change the future of things, but at such a small scale, it's gonna have like exponential impact, right? Like, people are gonna talk about the Super Bowl for weeks, months. Yeah, I'll talk about it for years with my grandkids. Maybe, I hope, about that one Super Bowl against Kansas City, just like we talk about past Super Bowls. Uh so just, I don't know why, but it's been weighing on me for a long time. What are we doing to help move things forward? And it doesn't matter. You can be in EMS, you can be in dispatching, you can be in the fire department, like you can be in uh law enforcement. It doesn't matter. You could be in corporate America. It, you can be just a member of the community. Like, if you think about legacy, your legacy at your job, legacy with your family, legacy with your community. How are those three things going to speak of you when you're gone? Well, did you have a community impact? Most of us are probably not going to get a library named after us. That's a pretty good legacy, right? Or some sort of building or a street. Like that's people that did a lot of like great things usually did things that are recorded in history. And they usually get immortalized in some sort of namesake, a street, a mountain, a building, a company. I would say the majority of us are not going to have that. The best we could probably hope for, or maybe that we have, is maybe a picture of us in some sort of hallway or conference room or something where in 10 or 15 years somebody can point at it and go, hey, who's that guy? Who's that gal? And hopefully there'll be somebody around to tell the story of why somebody's picture is there or um who that person was. But chances are no. I'm going to read you a text message that I think I accidentally got. But either way, I think it hits home the point of legacy. And this is from Malcolm's uh, neuro-oncologist at Mayo. So the guy that basically is treating Malcolm's glioblastoma. He sent this to his wife. She forwarded on. It was not meant to come to me, but it did by accident. Not because it harbors some hidden secrets, but because it was just a accidental thing. But when I think about legacy now, this is what I'm going to think about. This is from his neuro-oncologist at Mayo Clinic, Rochester, Minnesota. We have a weekly conference for our neurology residents where we are supposed to go over and present interesting cases. It is my turn to present this week. I prepared it about Malcolm. Rather than just presenting his clinical course and teaching about the diagnosis, though, I included a story about the mastiff he saved. I also took some quotes from the Shift Change podcast he recorded about life perspectives for EMS professionals. We do not have a large group, and this will barely capture an ounce of his story and personhood. We don't have a large audience either. But this is still the first time anything about who a patient is as a person will be shared. I hope at least a few people will listen, and every one of our residents will know something about your husband. If you break that down into what it is, Malcolm Courtner changed the way they present healthcare at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Because what it says is, it says they used to just talk about disease process, just talk about the path of glioblastoma. They would talk about glioblastomas and the progression of somebody's case from diagnosis to death through all that treatment. What they're doing now, or what he is doing now, is he is now talking about a person with a glioblastoma. So instead of talking about glioblastomas, they're talking about Malcolm Courtner with a glioblastoma. It's the first time anything's ever been done like that. And it won't be the last. It's going to change the course of how they present cases at the Mayo Clinic. Malcolm Courtner did this. Not by screaming, not by yelling, not by the woe is me mentality, not by being a victim, but just by being Malcolm. Just by being him. Just by going up there, interacting with people, asking questions, being articulate, researching his own disease, having a conversation, not accepting the status quo, just being him. It's going to change the way people talk about glioblastomas. And I wish everybody could understand the gravity of that. Like, that is a big deal. That is a big deal. So if they're going to change the way they talk about disease processes at a teaching hospital, or at least the disease process for glioblastoma at a teaching hospital, you imagine what kind of legacy that guy's left or will leave. Not yet. Will leave around his community and his family and his profession. Despite having to leave that legacy probably all too early, but leaving a legacy nonetheless, in a short amount of time, the impact he's had on family, community, and profession. It's a pretty amazing story, really, when you think about it. Happy to be a small, tiny part of it. And in no way do I want that story to be self-serving. Tiny part of it. Humbled to be a tiny part of it. We have one more story. In our office, we have a picture of, I wouldn't say a picture, but you guys remember those, like, I don't know, uppercase living things where we could make like quotes and then send it in, and then they would come back, and then there would be something you could like pin it to your wall. Well, we did that in our office, and I'm going to read it to you right now. So this is legacy. This is the legacy that our former manager has on our business, right, or on our job right now. And it says, as long as there are team members that stay focused on the patient and their families, that is all anyone can control. If you lose that, you have lost the most important part of serving others. That is written on our wall in our office. That legacy will live on as long as, well, A, we stay in that office, and B, nobody paints it. But C, as long as the program is in business, as long as we are in that office, that legacy will live on. And that is a huge impact that he's had on us as a program. And when I shared that with him, his whole response was he was happy to have a small part in that, a small part in that big program, a small part in where that, but he had a huge part in that, in our program. But he was humbled enough to say, listen, I was a tiny blip in that radar of a bigger plan, of a bigger scheme. And that to me is a great legacy. So I'm going to wrap it up. That's what I'm striving for. Not to be remembered in the history books as somebody who accomplished great things, but to be remembered by people who was somebody who tried to just be great, like as a human. Only time will tell if I accomplish that goal or not. But think about that next time we're rolling down the road and we're about to say something, on whether or not that what we're about to say or those actions we're about to do are going to have a positive impact on our careers, our professions, and the people around us, or if it's going to have a negative impact. And how do we want to be? How do we choose to be remembered when we step away from this job that it is of serving other people, or when our time comes to leave Earth and head to the gates of heaven. That's it. Let me know what you think. That's all I got. Still working on that show about imposter syndrome. Really want that to get good. I really want to be accurate on that when I talk about that. So I'm still doing some stuff. So hopefully in the next week or two. And that's it, everybody. Thanks for listening. Everybody work hard. Be kind. Talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Shift Change podcast. I need to ask if you would leave a rating. I think that it helps people who are new to the podcast find it quicker. It doesn't do me any good, but it does help other people that are looking for the Shift Change podcast on Spotify or Apple. It just comes up quicker the more ratings that you give it. I don't whether you give it a 2 or a 5, it doesn't make a difference. It just helps other people. If you need to get a hold of me, contact me via my email, the show email, which is talkshiftchange@gmail.com. Or you can message me on Instagram at talk.shiftchange. Excuse me, at talk.shiftchange on Instagram. As always, thanks for listening. I could not have imagined um, how well this podcast has been received. So, as always, I appreciate it. Work hard, be kind.